is Hog Farmer Chris from the Hog Farmers Charitable Foundation. And before you start listening to Red Zone in the Lab, check out our Amazon Smile, a simple way to support the Hog Farmers Charitable Foundation every time you shop, and it's no cost to you.
We're back! Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab with Deuce.
Welcome to a brand new season of the Red Zone in the Lab podcast, where nothing is off the table. We will be discussing entrepreneurship, education, Black history, health, movies, family, and of course, sports. So do yourself a favor, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow on all social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And of course, you can always visit us at redzoneinTheLab.com.
Welcome back to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. I am Deuce, and entering the lab today is AJ Perez from Front Office Sports. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so glad for you to join us. This is the busy time of the year going on and different things that looking forward to the all season. You got the Pro Bowl coming up, the Super Bowl, the Senior Bowl, all types of things is going on right now.
Yeah. I'm flying down to Phoenix on Monday. So
yeah, man. Radio Row is a dream of mine. One day I'll be able to get there. Before we get started, AJ, like I'm always kind of about like different media people as yourself, national media. Like, what are you guys' favorite teams, and like how do you kind of like when you covering teams? Like, are you able to separate that?
for me, it's easy because I was a Rams fan growing up, and then they moved to St. Louis. So I kind of stopped following. I was still an NFL fan, but kind of stopped following the Rams. And then, of course, they win the Super Bowl right after that. Yeah. Now when they won it all last season, I was like, but yeah, it's kind of like it's actually good for me for that. I am a Dodger fan. I did cover the World Series. I went to the World Series as a fan when they won it in 2020. And I'm a Shark fan, which no one. For hockey, which smaller sport, and they haven't done well in a long time. So it's not that hard. I really it's kind of, you always check your biases at the door. And actually, I think there's in some ways you actually cover the teams you like because you know it so well. Sometimes more harshly, or not. I mean, more harshly, but more thoughtfully, and just so no one can accuse you of being biased that way.
What is your overall, like your general feeling of the sport of football?
Well, I think it's, and a lot of people, I covered the CTE stuff about 10 years ago, when it was really picking up, and everybody thought by this point the NFL would be going trending down, or the college game. Obviously, the NIL's changed a lot of that there. The college game would be the college football and all going down to youth football. There has been some participation setbacks for the younger ages, and maybe it's not played in many states by as many people, but in the South, in LA, in Texas, it's a sport still big at all levels. And I think there's always going to be a supply of talent and great players that to choose from, even though there obviously is the traumatic brain injury that we saw with Tua this year and other players, that's always going to be part of the game. And pretty much no matter almost what they do, they're going to make it as safe as they can. But there's always fears that it changes so much it'll become two-hand touch or flag football. While the changes have altered things, and have created new injuries. I think ankle and knee injuries, since they, because of the tackling guidelines. There's always side effects from these from these new rules to protect from concussions and other head injuries.
Yeah, covering CTEs, as you mentioned, when you saw the Tua injury, and more so like the graphic photo that for some reason they just could not stop showing on national TV, what was the first thing that came to your mind, being that you actually is involved in all of the research and everything that was going on?
Yeah, I was shocked about the one where he was concussed, and he was not put in protocol. And I was on Twitter saying, I was like, yeah, there's no benefit towards not identifying a concussion, because as we saw, Amazon, the NFL's new TV partner, that was, that happened 4 days later, and look what happened. It was a big deal, and it should be, because that was, and not only that, within, a few days of initial concussion, the second impact syndrome, where your brain can swell and you could die. That's where, that's what I was worried about, because within a few days, it's usually within, 48 hours, but it can be a little longer. The closer concussions are to each other, the immediate and long-term implications are so huge. That's why, the NFL did an investigation. They found, some things they have to improve on, which they have done over the years. The concussion protocol has changed. They went from not having one to having one that had some flaws, and I think now it's in a decent place. But it's always going to be subject. These players will always want to play. They're going to hide concussions. Yeah, I mean, Peyton Manning 10 years ago said he would basically falsify his baseline testing, because he didn't want, because if he got concussed, he wanted to, basically have that bar set so low that, that he would remain in the game. Players are going to do that. And that's why the NFL and the NFLPA has to protect the players from themselves.
Yeah, I totally agree, because that was scary for me. And then for him to get concussed again, now he's still in concussion protocol. That's why he's not going to be able to be at any of the Pro Bowl activities. Like, for me, it gets to a point where, and I'm not a player, right? I'm not an NFL player. I don't. When you come in an NFL, you have these salaries. You got to think about your family. All these things that you can and can't do. Something that you love so much, and it is a violent game, but. Like, for me, it has to come to a point where it's like, you know what, maybe I just have to just let this go, especially something from what Tua had went through this year. But if you was to give Tua any advice, what would it be?
I mean, just he's in the program. He's still in the protocol. Just take it easy. I mean, I've never been knocked out. I've had 3 concussions that I know of from playing hockey. So. And I don't get, just barely, I don't get paid for it. So it's, you have to, these, when you talk to some, it's mostly talking to the survivors of people who have been diagnosed with CTE postmortem, talking to family members, and just how much they degraded in their later years. And we've seen even younger players, that have it, that died young, and then they do the autopsy and they shown to have CTE. It's just sad. It's just, you don't want to get to that point, and and CTE is still not totally understood. Not everybody who has a concussion, several concussions, is going to end up with it. There's still a lot we don't know, and there's still not a cure. And there's still not even a proven test in the living. So there's so much things. I think hopefully I've written about possible treatments before. I've undergone some of that, a couple of those. But there's still a lot that needs to be done, including as far as what can be done from a medical standpoint to those players, or anybody, military too. This is where it all comes from. A lot of this research comes from the military. So that's huge. I hope we get there. There's some way to hold back these tau proteins that they think cause CTE. Any way to mitigate that would be huge.
And talking about the Super Bowl, there's going to be a historic moment for this Super Bowl by having 2 Black starting quarterbacks for the first time ever. It's a joyous moment for me, and sad because my dad didn't live long enough to be able to see it. I always tell people, if there's anyone in your family, your dad, your uncle, anyone, like, just take that moment in at the beginning of the game, just take it all in, and then you can go out and let your fandom override. But what's the significance of this day for the Super Bowl?
I mean, going back to Doug Williams, I was in grade school when he played. That it's huge. It's taken this long. It was shocking when I saw that on Sunday night, and it was also 16 years after the first 2 Black head coaches faced off against each other. Which shocked me that literally the Black quarterbacks come 16 years after facing each other. Come 16 years after the first time 2 Black coaches, and the only time, and we've only had 2 Black head coaches in the Super Bowl since. Tomlin twice. But so it's pretty amazing. That's a lot of people focus, and my focus is on a front office and coaching diversity in my job, less so the players. And obviously the NFL. We all know the racial stereotypes that have hindered Black quarterbacks over the decades. And I think even Jalen Hurts was basically asked at the combine if he'd be willing to switch to running back. I mean, that sits still. It doesn't happen as often, and I think a lot of it is because we've had so many great quarterbacks over the years make it to win championships and to make an impact on the game. Or that hopefully now is that is in the past.
Yeah, hope so. I mean, there are more black quarterbacks in the league that's playing at a high level. So hopefully this won't be the last time. But you take what you can and you kind of take it all in, and you appreciate the moment. And that's what like me, you, and other people around the world hopefully will be able to do, at least for the first 5-10 seconds before before the competition actually begins. But let's talk about my team, AJ Perez. And I don't know if that's something to be too excited about. But you have been covering the investigations into the Commanders. Can you just give us an update of where we are now
with the investigations?
Yes,
basically,
sir.
we got the Mary Jo White investigation, which is the second outside league investigation, still ongoing. Maybe the Super Bowl, I'm sure, we'll ask Goodell, and Goodell will say she's on her own timeline, which is what he told us in Dallas in December. So yeah, that's still going on. So that's looking at basically two different things. One thing is what we broke the story on last March was on the financial irregularities, potentially holding back ticket revenue from the league and other things. That's one thing. And then there was one allegation made against Dan Snyder for harassment. Those are the two things she's looking at. We don't know when that's going to happen. There's a little bit of there's a little speculation out there that report, some kind of report that we will get, which we've been promised, which we didn't get with the Beth Wilkinson investigation in March 2021. It was like some kind of Fulbright summary report out of Mary Jo White. Now that may not drop until after a new controlling owner, if one is selected, if it goes that way. If one is the application is put into the NFL and that's headed toward a vote. I think that would be a lot of people speculate that that's when it'll drop. It's not going to drop before there's been a decision on where this ownership thing will go. They also have an investigation by the Virginia Attorney General, which I checked yesterday, still ongoing. The Maryland concluded theirs with a settlement. The other two lawsuits out of the DC Attorney General, which are still ongoing. And then we have a probe by the Department of Justice, which I'm still trying to figure out. I was able to confirm it. ESPN had it first, but I'm just trying to figure out what exactly they're looking at, because I reported financial irregularities, but that's not a specifihave crime. I don't know what statute that they're looking into is possibly being a violation. I have court transcripts of some cases where Snyder was basically, I wouldn't say testified, but he was under oath for part of some of these lawsuits. And there's always potential for perjury or lying to a federal investigator if there was a federal investigator that has interviewed Snyder, which we don't know. So there's no proof that there has been. So there's a lot of things out there we don't know, but we know about those current probes.
What type of impact is that, or does it have any impact on the potential sale of the team?
I don't think it helps or hurts. I think Snyder will have to put some more money aside, probably in some kind of escrow account, if for whatever happens to these investigations. Obviously, even Mary Jo White, I guess, even though they could come after him personally, I'm sure there'll be some kind of binding agreement where the new owner won't have to be paying for any of those bills. So they'll create some kind of contract or escrow account to handle that.
Yeah. When it comes to the sale of the team, and I kind of think about those investigations and the Mary Jo White and the Wilkerson, like my man, like this is not reported, nothing like that. I just kind of talk about it. My thing is that if Dan decides to say, I'm not going to sell, for me, I feel like, well, I think the owners had a silent count at some point at one of they get-togethers, and they might have a Wilkerson report. They might say, hey, we're going to release this report. Because for me, like knowing Dan Snyder and the fan that he is, I just can't see him wanting to sell this team.
Yeah, it kind of became a shock when a couple was early November when we got that whole thing, and it's still kind of And it was like came out of, what was the impetus behind that? It was a few weeks after Jim Irsay, said there was merit to remove him. But talking to the owners,
was a wild time to host.
Yeah, I was right there. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, geez, man, I can rush to my laptop now. So that was huge. But yeah, I had heard that privately from other owners for months, and a lot of other reporters have. But he was the first person to put his name on it, and come out and say that. He was a lot more reserved in December at the next owners meeting. But yeah, there's right now, I think they're kind of laying. The owners are not going to say much, even privately, about this until there's a resolution with the sale, or if it gets sold.
Yeah. So let's talk about the sale of the team. And one of the questions that I have for you pertains to the Broncos sale and the Russell Wilson transaction. How involved were the bidders or the Waltons when it came to that initial transaction? Because we know they didn't actually sign the papers until the summer, I believe, and then Russ signed his extension in September. Like, were they aware of all of that going on? Would they have been in a loop somehow? Because that's some of the things that we're trying to figure out if it's a possibility for us and how that works.
I think they were informed. I don't think they could have made, I don't think they had to sign off on it, but I think they were kept in the loop, I'm sure, because it eventually would be their money when it comes to an extension.
Yeah.
So, but this is like that's the downsides of making changes while there's an ownership, kind of questions around the next owner. Even though Walton had won the bid months before he was approved in August, there was still things, you got to do a lot of transactions. The new league year starts March 15th. That's when the free agency period starts. So it's going to be, teams don't usually make changes like the Broncos did because there's a downside. Obviously the new GM, new coach, so the coach got fired. You traded for Wilson, and Wilson didn't. Yeah, he that hadn't worked out so far. It doesn't mean it's not going to work out in the long term, but that first season was not. Obviously, it was a major. That showed that looks like the Seahawks got the better of that trade. So you don't want to make the until you get and also. And it's not just the off season because as you become an NFL owner, it'd be your first time running this kind of a company. And I don't think we'll ever see another Jerry Jones where that hands on again. But I think there's you also need to learn the business a little bit, and you're going to be studying up. You'll be briefed and all the other stuff leading up to if you're going to be approved. But you still don't know until you get there day one, and that's why you want to kind of have leave things in place until you kind of figure out what you want to do with the franchise. And there's a lot of things up in the air, including the stadium and everything else to worry about as well.
Do you sit back and say, man, these walls just need something? Feel like it's time to freshen up your place with something new? If your answer is yes, then it's time to call Rob of Lewis Paints Plus, the accent wall expert. Rob will even give you a free estimate on how he can transform those boring walls in your home. To book today, call 240-418-5241 or reach out on Instagram at Lewis Paints Plus. And for 10% off, tell him Red Zone sent you.
Are you hearing anything about like once a new owner comes in, like the location of the stadium, what would make the most sense? Is DC back in play? Is Virginia, I believe they was in the beginning giving the most money. Is Maryland willing to give more money? Like, where are we with the sale?
I think we're looking at, there's like three different options that I'm hearing. One would be building a new stadium on the same site as FedEx. Going towards Virginia, which is again studying a stadium proposal. One of there were 3 sites last year, Sterling, and then 2 in Prince William County that were studied. The Prince William County was, even though that kind of died last year, one of those 2 sites was a front runner. And then you have RFK. RFK is being torn down right now, and that would take a lot of work. The RFK site is going to be the hardest, just because Congress still controls the land. It's National Park Service land. You'd have to transfer it to the city. The city right now has, basic ordinance in place where you can't publicly finance a stadium. So the person coming in would have to pay all of it. So that's a big hurdle there. And also a lot of people in the community want, and local leaders are pushing for affordable housing on that land as well. So with a new owner to get RFK, would the new owner have to offset, the lack of housing on the site somewhere else in the city? That's a possibility. There's a lot of things out there. RFK would be, I think most fans would prefer it. It's, there are a lot of, but also a lot of neighbors around that would RFK would not be too happy with it. But so that's, I think that those are the options right now. But then, and there could be other ones coming up. National Harbors always kind of pops up here and there.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But it's so, no matter where you put it, it's gonna be at bad traffic. Even we know this area. I mean,
most definitely.
It doesn't matter. But I think the Prince William County sites were just so without metro, I just don't know how that works. They were talking trains up and everything, but the traffic's there is probably worse in the area. I mean, there's a couple sites in the Beltway that could be worse, but it's not good there.
When we talking about like the bidders and everything that's going on, I think the last thing that I heard was around 5.5. I think it was a 6.3 that came out at some point. Like where are we as far as like a timetable? Is there going to be another process where more bids are put in, and we know Bezos is in the limbo, whatever's going on in that situation? Like what type of timetable are we looking at, especially as fans want to get this over?
Yeah, I've been talking to people I've talked to this week, think that we'll have maybe by the next several weeks, we'll maybe know if Saturday's selling and who it's going to be to. I still think it's going to be a major stake of the team. I think it's going to be almost all of it, or maybe almost 90, like at least 95% of it. It's going to be that big of a stake. I don't think there's, I reported several days ago that that the bidders for the team were told that Snyder's selling at least half, and most of them expect more. So that means that we'll have a new controlling owner, and he has to sell at least half because he controls 90% or so of the franchise. And to be a controlling owner, you have to have the controlling stake. Normally that could be as low as 30%, but since Snyder owns almost the entire team, it has to be about half. So that's where that's going. The $6.3 billion bid. We don't know who bid, but that was the highest bid, according to my sources, which pushed back on a previous report from Forbes that had it at $7 billion, which was always a number that I heard when we were hearing $7 to $8 billion. I was like, wow. I mean, wow. I was like, yeah, you pay that much, you got to pay another $3 billion for a stadium at least, probably close to $4 billion, and it's all said and done. If you don't get huge financing from taxpayers.
That was my next question. How much would a new stadium cost?
The Dome Stadium proposal that the Jason Wright and the others last year were pushing for was about $3 billion for a Dome Stadium, and it had other amenities. They had entertainment district and other things around it. It would also house the new headquarters for the team and practice facilities. So that's but a lot even people I talked to since, it's like that's kind of that's pretty low. There's always cost overruns. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to cost as much as SoFi, $5-6 billion. But there's always going to be cost overruns with these things.
And when you think about the land right now that they have at FedEx, help me understand, they do own the land, or are they renting the land?
It's a lease agreement that can be renewed with Maryland. It's kind of a weird deal there. So I think, they kind of like they're leasing the land. They're like leasing. It's like a lease / ownership thing, but they do have a stake in it. But I think they would have to I'm pretty sure they have to get approval for a new stadium from either the county or the state or both. But to work out basically a new stadium lease agreement.
And for us that love RFK, I used to live on 19th Street when I was younger, and my mother got me a job during the season when I was selling Cokes at RFK, the soda. Nice. So I was able to experience that. But a lot of those fans are not there anymore, right? Let me just But for some of us, I have a guy that a buddy of mine named Arch. We call him Arch, and what he said was what would be dream for him and a dream for me too is to be able to build the stadium there, and also use the land out in Maryland for the training camp or team facility and things like that. Do you think that's a good idea and something that would be in play?
Well, I don't know. Possibly. I think that would be. I think you're right. RFK is too small to house anything but the stadium.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Would they stay in Ashburn? Ashburn, they've been here for almost.
And I know that the players love it out there. Yeah.
It's kind of boring, but I don't know. Yeah, it's it's a little. Yeah, we don't. You could go. It's a little easier to traffic wise if you're just going to stay around Loudoun County, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. There could be something in between. They could sell the land and go buy a plot closer to DC. It's all expensive no matter where you go.
Right.
So yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, that's always. I think that pretty much you can't rule anything out right now because really we don't know what the direction this is going to go.
From your sources, and have you been covering the team? What percentage, like out of 100, will Dan Snyder, like you said, sell at least a majority of it? Like you said, around 90%.
Yeah,
and we will have new owners. Like, what would be your percentage?
I think it'd be 100 to 90% to 100. I think that's
Oh,
what's
I
going to
love
be
that number.
because like Snyder knows this. I mean, Snyder bought the co-owners out. He paid $900 million, about $900 million for 40%. So, but now that if the team's going to be sold for 6.3 or more, it's probably closer to 6.5, 6.6, or closer to around there. I think that's going to be the final number around that point. That's you don't get the same value. So if he keeps 30 or 40% of the team, he no longer has a say in anything really day-to-day operations wise or really anything with the team. The controlling owner will, but he does that asset doesn't appreciate like it does if you sell all of it. So he would lose by $1 billion by keeping that much money because you can't when you sell a partial stake in the team, you get maybe half, maybe a third of what the full value would be. So if he only sells $6.5 billion, he only sells a little more than half. He may have like $3 billion. That's his equity, that's a stake in it, but he can't offload that because he'll get $1.5 million instead of $3 billion. That's a downside of having a partial team ownership like that. It's great. It's an ego thing for a lot of people, but it doesn't really it's not an asset you can readily sell. You can sell it, but it's not going to be ever sold for as much as you would for all the team.
Do you think there's any chance he doesn't sell?
There's always a chance. I mean, I have sources. Yeah, I have sources. I have a couple of sources like, they're not, because this is the reason why a lot of it is because Sarver, the leading owner of the controlling owner of the Suns, after that investigation and his 1-year suspension, some of the bankers thought by the end of the year suspension, which is coming up, I guess, 7 or 8 months, that he would not offload the team. But it's much different. I mean, he only has like 30 or 40% ownership of the team. He's a controlling owner, but doesn't own almost all of it like Snyder. And also he got some pretty high bids for that stake. So that's kind of that's where people kind of shifted to Snyder. Well, he did the same thing, even though there's no proof that Sarver would have done that. A lot of speculation there. But yeah, there's a lot, just because Snyder, this is what Snyder wanted to own. Growing up in Silver Spring, this is his team. Yeah. He's fought everything. How many lawyers and lobbyists he's spent millions of dollars on just over the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, he's fought, and he's fought Congress. He's fought the subpoena. He fought he's fought everything. And then for him, that's why in November, just saying, looking to sell or exploring the options. And then moving towards looks at least as of now, he's looking to sell a decent chunk, if not all of it. It was a major shift, and it's kind of either he's moved on, he's ready to, he knows, the whole, he lost faith with the owners. He can't get a new stadium. He's not this publicly financed stadium. He has some loans coming up in the next couple of years for buying out that 40%. So that there's no money pressure. He can refinance those, and that's not the reason. But there's always going to be there's at some point he didn't want to fight anymore. But we can only speculate because he hasn't talked. There's been no comment out of the team for the sale situation since they announced it. Getting anybody that close to Snyder has been very difficult for us reporters.
With the sale going on, of course, we're searching for an offensive coordinator. We have some holes that we need to fill in the offseason. Do you think the pending sale of the team will have any effect on like spending money and free agency, for instance, or like what you tweeted, this will have to take some maneuvering it like Rex Ryan to get Sean Payton and so forth.
Oh, man.
Like,
yeah, I was half listening on Sunday. I'm like, did I just hear Rex Ryan? I'm like, I went back. I was like, oh, geez, yeah. Which is it's always interesting. There's always a possibility of stuff like that happening, whether it's likely or not. Probably not, but you can't rule anything out. Like I said earlier, we don't know. There's so many things we don't know about the sale process. But yeah, I don't see any major huge swings. I mean, obviously getting training for Carson Wentz didn't work out well. That was with Dan Snyder's knowing, even though Rivera kind of took the fall for that one. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think we're going to see that between the coordinator search. I don't know if there'll be any major swings when it comes to free agency. Obviously, Payne and others need to be re-signed, and you can't lose. Losing him would be huge. So there's going to be they're retaining guys and luring people. It's hard. It's kind of it's not a destination until a new ownership's in place. Now, if the new owner, it would be helpful by March 15th, the start of the league new year for free agency. And then the draft after that, it would be helpful to if at least the fans and the public knew who the next owner would be if Dan is selling. Because that's going to be, it would reinvigorate the franchise a lot. Especially if it's going to be a guy like Bezos or something. I think it won't become a destination immediately, but but it'll help with those efforts. And especially, we don't see. I don't think we're going to see Rivera is going to be here unless Sean Payton gets to get Brady and Payton in here. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where that came from, but it was like he's not a reporter. He's a guy on TV. So who knows if this came from somewhere. Yeah, somewhere with knowledge, which I have no sign that it has. Yeah, it would be fun to cover.
Who knows, right? What is Bezos' play? Like, does he has a play? Is he just like, what's his deal?
Yeah, well, you don't know. There's interest there, but there's also, with the Seahawks possibly being the next team on the market, and one with a fairly new stadium and closer to where he founded Amazon. And I know he has roots. His roots go back there further than they do here. He has a huge house in DC. He owns the Washington Post. Amazon's second campus, or one of second, third headquarters, I guess, is in Arlington. So there are connections here, and it would make sense for either of them. But it's going to take a lot of work. I mean, it's kind of like a fixer-upper franchise. If you're spending $6 or $7 billion to buy, it's you got to do a lot of a lot of work, and it's not going to be Bezos doing it. It'll be his lieutenants. I'm guessing. I'm sure he has to write the checks for it, so he'll have a say. But it's going to be that's what it's going to take. And he's not. No indication he's a huge sports fan. I kind of have an idea why he wants to get involved in an NFL team, and I think the owners would love to have him in the group.
Yeah. Thank you so much, AJ. But before you go, of course, the Super Bowl is up. You will be on Radio Row next week. What is that like? Because that's just a dream of mine to be able to get there one day. What is Radio Row like?
I'm just there. I just hang out there. I don't have a show, so it's great. But yeah, so I have a couple. I was going to go on a couple of shows. But it's just you see these athletes hawking the weirdest supplements and stuff. It's just like you see some of the stuff they're hawking, where you have to mention what they're advertising, and to get in with them. And I remember Darryl Strawberry blew me off one time when I was covering the Super Bowl in New York or New Jersey, I guess, but it was in the Super Bowls. The Radio Row that year was somewhere in New York. I can't remember now. But yeah, it's kind of like you see these athletes and not just NFL players and current and former. You see all these different people talking. A lot of the obviously national radio people and local radio people, all spread out, trying to, and the producers running around trying to get people. It's just kind of, it's a little hectic. It gets, it's kind of starts slow on Monday and it builds up towards the weekend. And yeah, it's a different place. You just see a lot of familiar faces there. I already people reaching out. I'll see you on Radio Row. I'll see you on Radio Row. Texting me, asking me if I'll be there. I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. So, but it's at the convention center this year in Phoenix. So our media headquarters, like it usually is not too far away from Radio Row, where us writers hang out.
That's cool. I know that electric bill gonna be high for the convention center after this month. Super Bowl prediction. Do you have your predictions yet, or is it? It's too early.
Man, it's too early.
I don't know. Yeah, no problem. No problem.
I know. I think I would. Someone asked me yesterday, one of my friends. I would say Eagles. I just think the Eagles are playing well. Their defense is, especially I think Mahomes will be fairly in a lot better shape with his high ankle sprain. But I think I hope it'll be a good game. I hope it's better than at least better the refereeing for either of the game, and I'm hoping it's definitely better than the Niners Eagles game. I was bad. I was yeah. My wife's a Niners fan, so I was like, oh man, I thought they should have put McCaffrey behind center.
I'm gonna let you go, but I do have one more question. Where does one leg Mahomes fit on your quarterback rankings?
He's got number one right now, right? I mean, I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know who else.
One leg Mahomes, not two leg Mahomes.
One leg Mahomes.
One leg Mahomes.
One leg Mahomes is probably almost as good as a two leg as a healthy Hurts. I mean, and I like Jalen Hurts. I mean, guy got benched in college. He basically lost his job, stayed with the team, and he got drafted by the Eagles. No one really wanted him, and and he's worked his ass off, and he's done well. I mean, he's so underappreciated, and I like guys like that. I mean, Mahomes, Mahomes was passed over by a couple teams, but he didn't go as late in the draft as Hurts did. I mean, how many quarterbacks were taken before Hurts? It's just like, so yeah, I think I like Hurts' story, and he doesn't have an annoying brother who's on social media.
Oh yeah, that's true too, right? Yeah, I kind of posted that on Twitter. Where does one leg Mahomes play? A lot of people had him top 8, one leg Mahomes.
Top 8, I would say top 10 for sure. I mean, he was able to scramble. He got that personal foul with his with the injured limb there. So
yeah, thank you so much, AJ Perez, Front Office Sports. Just let us know where we can follow you and read up on any of your content.
Yeah, frontofficesports.com. Sign up for our newsletter, daily newsletter. It's free. It goes out twice a day, once on Saturday and Sunday. And I'm at BYAJ Perez by AJ Perez on Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you so much again, AJ. Thank you for giving us some of your time. We know that your time is very valuable to you, and for you to spend it with some of us, we greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you to all of you that watch. Thank you for listening. This is Red Zone, and y'all can hear our alarm clocks over there at AJ's with the dogs, barking. We thank you so much. One beat, one sound, one heart, one love.
Thank you for listening to Red Zone in the Lab podcast. Please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Red Zone in the Lab. And you can download our podcast at Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. And please visit our website at redzoneinTheLab.com. Thank you.